ASK Gaming. We will get started here in about 30 seconds. Great to have you with us again today. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Monday after WrestleMania, the most stupendous of all the WrestleManias that have ever happened, depending on your perspective. This is Greg Mitchell with Ultimate Sports Talk. It's such a pleasure to be here with you all today. Thank you for joining in as well. We've already got some chatter in the chat. If you're watching this on Twitch, definitely reach out to us. Feel free to engage as part of the SK Gaming already. It really wasn't the most stupendous of all the WrestleManias, and I think a lot of people agree that it also wasn't the biggest WrestleMania match of all time either, but that's for a different discussion on a different day. We'll see if we can get to that maybe later on in the stream, but for today, what we are going to talk about is I came across a couple of videos that I want to play. We heard and saw all the news with Cody Rhodes returning to WWE. We have a press conference immediately following night one of WWE WrestleMania that we will play. I have not seen it yet. I've seen the first 30 seconds, and that was it. I thought this is too good for me not to share live on the stream. So we will be watching it together. I will pause periodically for us to talk about what we're hearing, what we're seeing, those kinds of things. But then I will also play a second interview that I believe was during night two or at some point after night one. It was sometime during the day of night two. With Ariel Helwani. And again, I've not seen it, but I'm assuming we'll probably hear some of the same things. We might hear some new information. We'll see how that goes. But that's going to be the focus for at least the first hour of today's stream. If you guys have any questions, thoughts, anything like that, feel free to put them in the chat. You can also DM me on Twitter at @AltSportsTalk. And let's make this an interactive, fun stream, shall we? All right. With that said, let me go ahead and get things queued up. For copyright reasons, we are not taking ownership of any of the material here. This was all made available to us via YouTube. Shout out to Denise Salcedo. Shout out to Gorilla Position and many, many others that were able to provide this type of content to us and make it available on their YouTube channels. Feel free to follow them on YouTube, on their social medias, and definitely give them credit where credit is due. And with that said, let's go ahead and cue this up. All right, so this is the first here is the interview immediately following WrestleMania 38, night one. Cody Rhodes at this point has just returned, had an amazing match with Seth Rollins, and the media has several questions and thoughts for him. So here we go.
A very heavy, surreal experience, and I didn't get to do pleasantries or formalities or anything. I was just locked into this bus. And then I was committed to, I'm not going to put these sweatpants on. They wanted me to wear sweatpants to go run to the elevator. And then, of course, I put the sweatpants on and I never saw anyone. I never got to see the crowd. I never got to see any of the boys. I never any of these talents I knew, talents I didn't know. And then the thing went up and I got to see, over 60,000 people or whatever it was, and it's just, I'm still reeling. I have a 9-month-old who did not make it to the match, which is okay, but she definitely stayed up throughout the night, so I'm sure there's plenty of parents in here who understand, so yeah, this is a nice to get out here and chat with you, all of you. I'm ready to rock.
Okay, well, Joel and I will take the questions, so raise your hand.
I think he did, we did speak, and I think Triple H did it in such a Triple H fashion. everybody had come on the bus to say hello, to talk a little bit about what may happen. The very last one was Triple H, and ooh, my assistant, my former assistant from AEW was, he came as a friend. He was on it, and he knows the world's worst kept secret that Hunter is my favorite wrestler. And that was a really, this has been a wild, tear-filled weekend, but it was just a good moment. Also, just to see him healthy, and I know retirement came as it did, but to do some justice, to not only see my favorite wrestler and somebody that, gosh, wanted to model so many things after and such, but Seth being his protege. And to be able to give some of those fan service, perhaps moments, for the fans, but also for Triple H, because all wrestlers, we're all marks and fans, and even at the highest level, which he's been. But that was really touching. Especially, you got to put it in perspective. As many of you know, I talked a lot of smack. I destroyed his throne. I mean, I was very loud and vociferous and just very intense on getting angry. I was just angry. And that was a moment of no anger. Because why would I be angry? You guys are paying me this absurd amount of money, and I get to be me. And especially coming from where I had left here, there's nothing to be angry about. It's more a matter of one, chapter ended, a beautiful chapter at AEW, which I'm so proud of. And then to start this new chapter here, I just kept saying out there, I kept saying finish. And I wasn't talking about the match. I just kept saying finish as far as what's next. What I started here, I got to finish that, if that makes any sense. But yeah, we spoke right before. I was very, very excited to see him. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Cody.
Okay, let's pause it right there. So, couple of thoughts. I think he handled that in a really professional manner. He mentions Triple H. I echo a lot of those sentiments. We talked about this previously on the stream about Triple H's retirement when he announced it on the Stephen A. Smith show. I really, and this occurred during night one before Triple H had his official send off, so to speak, at the beginning of night two of WrestleMania. So that was a very special moment when that happened. A lot of people felt very strongly, some emotional, some not so as emotional, about Triple H's send off. He comes out at the beginning of night two. Welcome to WrestleMania. He's got one of the longest entrances of the entire night, but he makes his way down to ringside. He hugs his kids, gives them a kiss on the head, and then gets into the ring, does his patented water spit type thing, dressed in his suit, his executive attire, gets in the ring. Welcome to WrestleMania. The crowd goes absolutely insane. We get a thank you, Hunter chant. And then we don't even see Triple H leave the ring. We see him on the outside hugging his kids again. And then they take the camera and they shoot in the middle of the ring. And there's Triple H's boots with the microphone just sitting there in the middle, to illustrate that's the end. That's the end for him. He will never wrestle again. For those of you who aren't aware, he had some medical issues, had to have emergency surgery a few months back. He does have a defibrillator now in his chest, so taking bumps and getting hit or falling in the ring is something that definitely is not medically advised. So he's done. He will never wrestle again. He's wrestled his last match. He does have plans to continue on as an executive within WWE, focusing on the Performance Center. They didn't really go into details about his role with the new NXT 2.0, but he did mention that they are taking a look at, is one Performance Center enough? Do we need to open up more than one? And it sounds as though he's primarily focusing on scouting. So it was great to see Triple H. I'm not surprised that the way that they handled everything with Cody Rhodes. I almost take from this that he had made his mind made up about WWE long before the announcement had happened. I know there were rumors about they were arguing over money, they were arguing over creative, things like that. That it wasn't officially done, but it sounds here like he was very clear this was what he was going to do next, and he was really pleased. He had an amazing chapter outside of WWE. He had talked a lot, said a lot, was very vocal about the wrestling industry in general. But now moving forward, he's he's doing something that special, and we've seen it with WWE in the past with the likes of like a Drew McIntyre, for example. They go off, they do their own thing. Now, granted, doing your own thing as Drew McIntyre is completely different than doing your own thing as Cody Rhodes. I mean, he was part of starting now WWE's greatest competitor. If you talk about just in-ring content or professional wrestling industry, if there even is truly an industry that market analysts look at, is very different. And even WWE will say in their stockholder materials, their main competition is NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, where that have unique networks or unique sports entertainment offerings that are broadcast on a global scale. AEW is just a fraction of any of those three. They're and really not even from a size perspective, financial perspective, are they even remotely close to WWE. So depends on your definition of competitor. But to go back to Cody Rhodes, I mean, he was part of creating that, and that's an amazing chapter. Some of his best matches so far to date have been in AEW. His last match was rated by Dave Meltzer from Wrestling Observer as a 5-star match with Sammy Guevara. So he's done some really important things that he should be extremely proud of, and you can hear that in his voice and his words there that he is very proud of it. Let's get here to the chat. SK Gaming, I hate how they make everything about them. It's either Stephanie saying thanks or Triple H retiring or Vince having a match. Yeah, I mean, I don't think at this point anyone should really be overly surprised by that. It's the McMahons come first, product comes second in a lot of cases. We saw all three of them throughout nights 1 and nights 2 of WrestleMania, and they had lots to say. Definitely things that they were doing and focusing on unique messages amongst all three of them. They're pushing Gable Steveson. They're pushing their agenda and their programming. They had to, looking back on night 2 now, they had to get something. And if you're bringing Stone Cold back, you have to do some sort of interaction with Stone Cold and Vince. They had such a storied history during the Attitude Era. It would be a disservice, I think, looking back on it now, if they had not done that and Vince was present at WrestleMania, was going to be on screen, and they didn't bring Stone Cold back. So that was a nice moment. But yeah, moving forward, I mean, I think I don't know that we're going to see too much of either of those three. I think we see it during WrestleMania. They're going to now take a back seat. Triple H will get more into that scouting executive role. Stephanie back into the marketing and people, focus the branding, and then of course you've got Vince, who's running the day to day and really the chief creative on everything, and chief business on everything, as we're fully aware. We'll probably continue to see him show up with the Austin Theory stories. He might be out there for 5-10 minutes during a specific segment that can really be recorded at any time. He doesn't have to be physically present, although he always is because he's in Gorilla. But yeah, it's definitely McMahon owned, McMahon run, and they don't miss an opportunity to tell you at the biggest stage and remind you that they are still here, still kicking, still very important to the WWE. All right, enough of that. Let's go ahead and get back into the interview here with Cody Rhodes.
Hey, of course. Is that Denise behind this light?
Yeah. Hi.
That light really blocking you. Good.
The usual suspects. But
Yeah.
you mentioned in previous interviews that you intended on retiring by 40. And you've mentioned that this is a multi-year contract.
Mhm.
Is this your last contract with wrestling? And do you still plan on retiring at that age?
Does this matter if I'm holding this mic?
No.
Good. Okay. 40 is this. It was for me as far as, and I don't know if we ever explained why 40. 40 was because I didn't want to be an old man wrestler, and some guys like being old men wrestlers and old women wrestlers. They love it. It's nothing. Some of them are doing it at the highest level. You don't know they're old, but this is something people forget about me. I started in the WWE system at 19, 20, and I was on the road full time. Never one weekend off, except when I tore my trap, and that was 3 weeks. That's where the mustache came from. So that was the only time I ever had off. In the 10 years I was with WWE, that's all live events. That's not, no knock on independent wrestling. Independent wrestling or Ring of Honor, maybe 2 shows a month, maybe one big loop. It was for me Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday often. And the kicker was I was a bad guy. So it's a lot of falling down. It's a lot on your body, and I just didn't want to have the saddle walk. I didn't want to not be able to pick up my kid. But there's the best medical team here where I just was, and everyone does everything. I mean, Tom Brady's like 80. He's still the GOAT. He's really he's the GOAT, you know. So maybe 40 isn't the number anymore, but I think that's probably still kind of out there for me, just because that'd be really fun. You know, I loved watching my dad wrestle when he was older, but also it's hard, you know, and people forget that it's like a 36-year-old going on 50 is more what it feels like, just because of the schedule I had. So I don't know. I think I'm going to get away from absolutes, because I was the king of absolutes for the last 6 years, and a lot of them coming back to bite me in the ass. So, which is fine. That's so good. We change our minds. We change stuff like that. But yeah, I think maybe 40. Yeah. I don't know. Am I picking?
So, I noticed there, maybe he alluded to an answer there, but I don't know that he actually answered the question. They were talking specifically about the length of time of the contract. Is this the end, is this the last contract he will have in professional wrestling as a performer? He mentions the age of 40, but all they really said here concretely is that it's a multi-year contract, and that Cody Rhodes is intending on wrestling up to at least the age of 40, and potentially longer than that. But at this point, that's kind of the bar that he's set for himself, because he does not want to be an older wrestler, an old man wrestler, I think, as he put it. So we didn't really get a firm answer. I don't know the length of the contract, don't know a lot of the contractual details there, but as far as where he's at, where WWE is at, the intention there is that he will be continuing to wrestle until he's at least 40 years old. Quick check on this. Cody Rhodes' age, let's just see. He is 36 years old right now. So when we say multi-year contract, it's possible that it is a 4-year contract. It's possible that it's just a 2 with options for 3 and 4. It's hard to say what the exact details are, but it looks as though he and WWE are intending for him to be there for at least 4 more years. All right. Don't see anything in the chat, so we'll keep it moving.
Hey. Yeah.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
You've legitimately changed the industry. You've given another place to
Thank
work
you.
for hundreds of young people that now have a place to work, be well paid. Is there anything that you want to come into WWE and try and change? Because there's a lot of talk about underutilized talents, creative not being the greatest all the time. Is there anything you want to bring to the table and change over here?
If I could think of one thing.
So it's really
And I really
hard to
appreciate
make
you
out
saying that
what
about,
the question was here. So I know it was probably very quiet on your end. It was even quieter on my end as well. So I'm not sure what the question was here, but we will hear Cody's response to whatever the question was.
The industry, because it sucks when you're a wrestler or you're an entertainer and you have to pat yourself on the back, say, "Oh, we did this," but truly, everything changed about sports entertainment, pro wrestling, whatever you want to call it. Everything changed with what me, Matt, Nick, Kenny, and Tony did, and there are people eating and families who are being. That's I could have ridden off on that. That's why I felt so good leaving. That's why it made all the sense in the world. Like, we did all this. The kids are good. Now I want to go do something for me. I totally forgot your question in my pontification.
Just making change over here.
Oh, it's simple. It's one thing. I think, if anything, I want to present myself without fear. Because when I was here, I was scared. I was a kid. I was scared. I mean, look around. There's 50 people monitoring this interview. There's the chairman himself. There's guys like Hunter. There's Stephanie. There's just these dynamic figures. There's a Nick Khan. It's just like these presents. And when you're a kid, that's scary. Even though you talk in the rental cars and all that. That's just, I was a kid, and to be able to come here and having known what works for me, and keeping the disruptive things that I do, because no matter what, yeah, this was my place for so long, but I'm an outsider in this moment. I don't know many people. I was blown away that Michael Hayes was in Gorilla. That was exciting. But yeah, to work without fear, to compete without fear, because here's what happens: if you do something that's off color or not what your producer or the boss wanted, well, then you come back and they yell at you. What's the worst that can happen? Because the alternative is you go out there and you blow it because you're trying to play it safe, which happened to me so much in the first 10 years. So much, you blow it. I would rather live and die by what I do. And I had told everyone who helped court me into this, I said, I have to do me. I'm not going to be rude to anybody, but I can't wait till the first writer comes up to me. I can't wait. Like, I'm not going to be rude, but man, I'll probably just lie to your face and say, yeah, sounds great. Sounds great. Because I got, like, and I mean no disrespect, but there's nothing, suspension of disbelief in wrestling, there's nothing fake about what I do. That's one of the hardest things about being me is the heat stays on, really. It's not, there's no gimmick. American Nightmare is a name, but it's just me. And I gotta do me, and that doesn't mean not listening to these individuals who know and have the knowledge, because all the books, if you want to get over in wrestling, are usually just here, right? There's somebody you wouldn't even expect who's been around for 15 years who could give it to you. But yeah, just to work and compete without fear, because the worst that can happen is you say, I'm sorry, it won't happen again. But you gotta go out there, because if your segment doesn't work, nobody backstage gets credited for how that didn't work. It's you who sucks. And I learned that the hard way. Yeah.
Yeah, he makes a lot of really good points there, and I think if I had to summarize it a different way, him leaving AEW and finding out what works for him, I think is more he learned a different perspective of the wrestling business. He grew up a lot without a lot of the same pressures of being in WWE, and he took a chance. He took a gamble on himself. So this was an opportunity for him. Now that he's back, he comes with a very different lens that he's looking through things and looking at things. And I think SK Gaming, you hit on this in the chat. He's genuinely honest, and I think that's both refreshing but also a little bit scary when he even acknowledges that in this interview. He's like, American Nightmare is a name. It's who I am. This is me. There's no gimmick here. It's, I'm Cody Rhodes, and I'm what you see on the screen is what I'm actually doing, and what I believe. So the heat doesn't drop when he has heat in the ring or backstage. It continues and it carries with him, because Cody Rhodes is the American Nightmare. The American Nightmare is Cody Rhodes. So really, really refreshing that you get this honesty. Kind of suspension of belief, I guess, is also tied with his specific circumstances of suspension of kayfabe. There really is no gimmick here. There's nothing that you have to question. Is this real or not? And I'm sure with WWE we'll get stories where that changes, but right now what we're seeing is the truest depiction of who Cody Rhodes is and who the American Nightmare is. And right now it's completely honest and very open and forthcoming.
Yeah, thank you.
Denise.
Cody, walk us through what it was like seeing Vince again and how that communication all went down.
I can say that we had a meeting in Atlanta, and I didn't expect the meeting I didn't expect it to go bad, but I thought, I'll be presented with something that is not for me, but I'll be able to say, thank you so much, and I'll be able to get closure on the first chapter, because the first chapter ended real poorly. Hey, I'll see you next week. No, you won't. And hey, here's my post on how I'm gone, guys. No one's keeping me down like this. So I never got closure on that. I never got it with Hunter. I never got it with Vince. I never got it. And that conversation was just sparkling, and it was really 95% of that conversation was about my daughter. So that was just special. I remember telling him afterwards, thank you, and if we never talk again, like, I feel so good, because there's a lot of equity and history with my family, and I don't know how to put it. I'm the meanest of all of the Rhodes guys. I'm just like an angry little kid still sometimes, and Dusty was so dynamic, but Dusty worked for Vince Sr. and had nothing but glowing things, and then him and Vince had a wonderful experience going against each other, competing against each other, but also the polka dot run, for what people don't remember about it, was a huge money-making run for the family. And then a little just personal tidbit, and forgive me if I get emotional on this. Not many people know this, but when I was, I think I was 17, maybe 17, 18, something like that, we were broke. My dad started Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling. And man, he's like, just here's $3 million, just throw it in a hole and forget where the hole is. And it was so much money, and he didn't want us to know we were broke, because he found ways, and a lot of that was through independent wrestling. People who have covered my journey know there's some promoters I consistently hit up because I owed them, and they didn't know me. And one time our power went out, and me and my sister were too proud of him to know, hey, he didn't pay the bill, and we didn't say anything. But in 2015, WWE, I think it was 2005, I'm sorry. 2015 is when I left. 2005, when he went back to WWE, I remember they put his picture on WWE.com, and he went, and he was a writer for SmackDown. He was working with Stephanie, and he was having a great time. And he did that DVD. And he got the residual check for that DVD. Mm-hmm. And my mom hit her knees and thanked God. Because it kind of saved our family. So, that's tons of equity. I can break every throne. I can make fun of some of the fun things there are that we all make fun of as wrestling fans. But you're still that kid. I wanted him to know that, and I got to tell him that. So yeah, and then the fun part was the pitch was really good. It was really good, and I thought, I thought he was going to tell me something terrible, and this was really good, and it was kind of everything I needed to hear, and it became the easiest decision I've ever made because it wasn't about money. Everybody pays really well in wrestling now, thankfully. It was about unfinished business. So yeah, thank you.
So that was an emotional take from him on his first interaction with Vince. once he had left AEW. He talks about the Atlanta meeting where he meets Vince. It's really the pitch meeting. And a couple of takeaways that I take from this is how important throughout all of this that family is to Cody Rhodes, to the Rhodes family, but also how important family is to Vince McMahon. You can say what you want about Vince and some of the comments that he's made or what people to me he releases wrestlers. And some people think that means he doesn't care. I think you have examples like this where during a pitch meeting, 90% of that meeting is spent talking about his family and his daughter and, how things are going and reminiscing about, that type of thing, catching up. Like two old friends that, haven't spoken in a long time that need to come back together. So it was really, really special. I think the other takeaway from this is Cody went into it with a mindset of I'm expecting to hear something that I don't like, and at least I can say I can get some closure from all of this. I can say whatever needs to be said that hasn't been said over the last few years. But this is my opportunity to have that moment with very little intention, I think, of actually signing with the WWE because, like you said, it's not about money. But the pitch being what it was, and we don't know the details of what was pitched besides money and things. We've heard rumors about creative control and those kinds of things and storyline development and what are we doing with my character. But what he does say very confidently here is that during that Atlanta meeting, Vince and team said everything that he needed to hear, and it was the easiest decision for him, which makes me feel good. I guess on a personal note, a lot of the things that he mentions there about his time with Dusty, him and his sister's time there growing up and seeing Dusty and the family being broke, them not being aware of that, them getting a check that saves the family, that kind of that it definitely hits very close to home for me. So I'm not alone. There are thousands of families that have gone through things very similar to that. And we owe God or a company or an employer or whoever a lot of thanks for how things ended up turning around. And in this specific circumstance, it ends up being Cody who owes promoters that kept the family afloat and don't even realize that that's what they were doing when they were working with his father. He owes Vince McMahon and the WWE for being able to help them during a time where they probably didn't even know what was happening. And that residual check ends up being the lifeline that saves the family. So it's hard when you hear stories like that not to fall in love with wrestling, not to fall in love with a company or with a wrestler or a story. There's a lot of love stories in professional wrestling. There's a lot of love stories in sports in general. So that's part of why we do what we do, because it's hard not to fall in love with that.
Maybe around the Royal Rumble. Because I didn't think I'd get another shot at it. In terms
I think the question was, when did you first have initial conversations with the WWE, or when were you thinking about potentially leaving AEW? I think that might have been the question. It was so quiet, though. The person who asked it was not close to a microphone, so it's really hard to make out exactly what they said. But let's continue on and hear the answer here.
was really proud of the run I had with WWE, but at AEW, I was the executive vice president. I was the head of the community outreach department, and I had a lot of, I call them kids. And I don't know, some may be older than me, but I had a lot of people who were in my kind of direct purview. So I didn't have time to think about it. We had a show, we had a business to run, and I wanted to make sure. I'm so glad I got one with Sammy on the way out. So it just was moving so fast, and then I have all these other fun projects that I love doing, like Go Big Show, and Roads to the Top was actually sincerely very fun. I'm working on a pilot now about vintage spirits and bourbons in the U.S. that I'm really excited about. So everything was moving so fast. So it was just, as soon as the baby was born, the literal second thing I thought, other than she's so beautiful, is I have to make a lot of money. Because now, like, I have this baby. Like, what do I do? So I was busy, and I think around the Royal Rumble, because what happens with the Royal Rumble is, this is going to sound super marky, and that's fine. I have really good Rumble stats. Like, so they're in the top 10 of the Rumblers, and I'm like one of the only two in that top 10 to not win it. And I remember thinking, like, that's going to go away. These guys, because, Ziggler's still these guys are still in there, and they're getting the time. And I'm thinking, oh, it would be really good to go back and go back in a vindicated type way, to be me and, try to be the absolute best wrestler in the world and prove it here. So I'd say about the Royal Rumble, because also around that time started creeping into my mind, as much as I loved where I was, and I loved my job. It's no one's dream to be an executive. It's pretty cool for a minute, and then you get blamed for everything, and which that's part of it. It's not your dream. Everyone who wants to be a wrestler, the dream is they're putting the belt on in their underwear. That's the dream, and I locked myself out of that because I didn't want to upset fans and do that, and they still got pissed. So I'm thinking, oh well, sorry, I locked myself out of the main title picture. So around that, I had told myself I didn't want to be a gatekeeper wrestler. I didn't just want to be, new debut, Cody program, new debut, Cody program. I didn't want to be that. So that around that time, I started thinking, what would it be? It would be different. It would probably be what's best for the whole business to do this. And maybe it was. I think it's best for everything. To do this and free up some of the real estate. I mean, they hired like 15 guys with what was available at the time, so that's good. I'd say about the Royal Rumble. I'm so used to picking.
You can put the mic down.
Okay. Mike!
Everyone's in stereo.
Hey! No shit, what's up, man?
So, the last couple of months, how surreal, weird has this entire process been for you, especially since Twitter and all the other social media things had
Great question.
all the conspiracy theories? What's it like being in the middle of that maelstrom? And you know what the deal is, but there's so many theories, there's so many riddles, and none of it is created by you. It's all outside forces. What's it like sitting in the middle of that, watching it all happen, and how surreal the last couple of months been leading up to last night?
I chose, and I think you know this, I chose to keep quiet on the departure. That was part of it, but also my own word, and Tony did as well. That was just because we have that respect for each other. But in the process of being quiet, wrestling fans don't like quiet, and they had every theory, and some of it, this was what, I think we even spoke about this. This was really what got me, and it was hard to see, was the theories were about money and creative control, and they were almost printed as if they were fact. And man, there wasn't a shred of truth. Like, that's why I kept telling everybody. I remember Meltzer reached out, and he wasn't really reaching out for a scoop, but I just told him flat out, it was time. Like, no, it was time. And maybe a little, damn it, on my end, like I wish we had done this, or maybe on their end, but being silent, I feel so bad for my agent, who's standing somewhere in the room, because it was hard. I didn't want to be defamed. But also you have to accept what really did happen. You did make the jump. So you do have to own that. So you did make the jump. You did leave, but how did you leave? So over time, I've told everybody there's not going to be a shoot interview from my end. There's not going to be this. There is no nefarious tale. There wasn't a scandal. It wasn't something with Brandy. It wasn't anything like that. It was just time, and that has been something that is hard, I think, for fans to accept. And it's sad because you'll find a lot of wrestlers. I'm sure you've experienced this. Who are like, oh, Twitter doesn't matter. Doesn't? They're people. Like, oh, they're bots. They're trolls. Really? This looks like a person. And you lost their money. You lost their friendship. You lost their fandom. That matters. In the industry of touching people, that matters. So the best I could do was the language of physical pro wrestling, the language of it, I thought maybe they'll figure it out and see it when I come out and feel like this isn't about leaving, it's about returning. And it wasn't about them. And when I say them, it wasn't about AEW, and it really wasn't about WWE, it was about me. And what I needed to do next as a professional. And it led to WWE and to be back in front of this fandom on the biggest stage. But it was tough. It was really tough. And I'm sure you met a lot of wrestlers, they're no problem with social media, none, right? And then they're the ones who have the nuclear meltdown, and you watch it. And I was part of helping people, part of the media team on helping people with social, and I was having meltdowns. So yeah, I had to sit and take it. Did we talk about Worf? No. Okay, so is it Measure of a Man? No, it's not Measure of a Man. Sins of the Fathers. Sins of the Father is the Next Generation episode for Star Trek. If you're not into Next Generation, please watch it. It's just a great ethics show, and nothing about space. They're just in space. But Sins of the Father, Worf accepts this dishonor to keep the whole thing whole. He accepts it. And man, I just felt like I'm having to sit here and just get shredded and ridiculed, and they'll never know. It wasn't a big deal. It was just time. So yeah, I felt like Worf for 40-something days. But then last night I felt, I feel good. They get it. And then I jabbed Seth, and there was kind of a discussion on, I wonder if they'll get it. And the jab more than the elbow, they got it. And that was a really, really good feeling. So I'm glad I did stay quiet, and it was a lesson in patience. Thank you.
So I'm not going to say a lot here. I think his words really said everything that needed to be said. It's special for him to come back. I mentioned this last night during the stream, and I mentioned it on Twitter the night before. I really appreciated the ways in which he pays homage to his family. He mentioned there about, are the fans going to get the jab? Not the elbow, but the jab. And what he's talking about there is, Dusty Rhodes patented jabs, and leading into the elbow, that he did in pretty much every major televised or recorded match that he ever had. And the fans got it. He, that was his way of giving credit to his father, who'd come before him and who, created the Rhodes name. There was also a moment in the match where he attacks Seth, and then he falls to his back and he gives the open hand slap, just like Goldust used to do, just like his brother Dustin Rhodes used to do. So this match was very much his commentary within the ring about his return, about the fans, about his family. I think it was a love letter to professional wrestling, and it was really, really cool to see. And one of the moments that made me just smile too was towards the beginning of the match. I think Seth and Cody lock up. They do a couple of punches or something, and they break. And then Cody goes and he does the Stardust cartwheel and the that little thing that he did with his hands. And the crowd, all of them got it. They all knew, and it was a very cool moment for I think Cody, but also for the fans that, we're still here. We still remember you for who you were. We know who you now are. But you don't have the new Cody Rhodes without the old Cody Rhodes, and you don't have Cody Rhodes without his family. So that was really cool. All right, let's keep the action going.
Hey, bro.
Ricardo Vaquero from Medio Tiempo from Mexico. It was a huge deal. You went trending topic in Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
You were trending topic over there. But I want to talk about the pop you got, the reaction from the people in
Sure.
WrestleMania. You got a Stone Cold level pop yesterday.
Yeah.
How big of a deal was it for you? And of course, what does that tell you about the decision you took 6 years ago to leave WWE and to be welcomed back in that manner?
Okay,
Well-
so that question was really, really quiet in the video. I'm sure it did not probably come across as well through all of you. So, what the person who's asking, first of all, he's from Mexico. He mentions this himself. It's not something that I'm hearing and I'm making a statement on. He says that he's from Mexico. But what the question was is, he specifically referring to the pop that he got when his music hit. He comes up from the stage, and how he referred to it as a Stone Cold level pop from the crowd. And the question is, what does that make you think about your decision to leave, 6 years ago, and how you feel about it now? Did that frame your opinion or change anything for you? So that's the question here. Let's hear the answer.
I think maybe just a lesson in don't let your place on the card really define you. There's a lot of guys who hit you with the pin me, pay me. It's a job. I don't know how much of a job this is. This is what I do. That's really the only skill I have. So I've heard different promoters say, "Oh, after 2 weeks they forget. They don't remember what we did a month ago. Let's catch them up." We didn't need to catch anybody up. They knew right when they heard wrestling is more than one royal family. They got it, and they knew that's what I was just telling Mike. Like, the language of what we do is very clear in terms of, this is hopefully, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but a triumphant return. This is nothing different, But I'm still kind of covering it in terms of, I put my phone down after the match, and I looked at it. I'm not close to catching up, but then also socially to see all that love. You got to take that and love it, because you're going to have days where I remember I cut this really bad promo on Anthony Gogo, which I thought was great. I thought it was great because I was talking about my kid and I was sincere in it, but it was just ill-timed and tone deaf. And I looked at my phone and just thought, oh my God, like, they're treating me like I murdered somebody, like I robbed a bank or something. The guy's a fucking promo. Like, yeah, sometimes I'll hit it out of the park or it's a strikeout. There's nothing in between. And for to be able to kind of peek at the phone and it's just gleaming and happy, and you always want to get all the old timers with your match, your Flairs, your Hogans, your Austins. I don't want to say old timers, but your legends, your Takers, you're just the legends. You want to get that text, and to be able to just see some of the names. Yes, it's just that little silent fist pump. Like, got it, So that was special. You said Stone Cold pop. I got a great Stone Cold story. I don't know if you guys remember the New Japan Long Beach show. I wrestled Okada. It was really fun, and I was just a really tremendous storyteller. So Okada is, and I was excited. And I always try to get some space afterwards, which is not possible here, by the way. My gosh, this is insane. It was fun though. But I went out to the parking lot, and he had come to watch that show and sit on the truck with one of his friends who was producing the show. And I didn't know that. There was whispers that Steve Austin was there. And he started walking across the parking lot. I mean, it's Steve Austin. Not like Steve Austin. It's the same guy walking in the ring last night. And he came up to me in the parking lot, and he was telling me just about some holds that I could do differently, but he was giving me really sincere, genuine advice from wrestling's most prolific moneymaker. It was just, you had to stop yourself from stop being a fan and listen to what he's saying. Listen. And so I'm listening, and then all this press and media is slowly coming. It's literally looking like they're moving up, and right as they got a little closer, he just patted me on the shoulder. He turned around, and he walked off into the darkness. Like there was no car, there was no hotel, there was no thing, and it was like Batman. It was legit like Batman, because there were people like, where'd he go? And he was gone. So I don't know if he turned the corner and sprinted, but yeah, it's just a really special thing. And we got to have that moment again last night. It was special because he said that was the match that you needed to have. And hearing that from the guy who's going on last, yup, thank you so much. And a lot of equity with my family and him as well. So yeah, thank you. It was good. I'm glad people enjoyed it. We're supposed to have fun. This is supposed to be fun.
Graham in the back.
Yeah.
Graham, Bleacher Report. So you mentioned a couple of months ago.
Holy smokes, Bleacher Report, huh? Oh. Were you ever on any of the conference calls?
No, that was always Chris Mueller.
Those guys were as sweet as can be, but there's some funny moments. Oh man, I'm sorry, I got it. Oh man.
You mentioned one of your final promos on AEW Dynamite a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
That this was reportedly, and you can change the timeline here if I'm wrong. You were free agent at this point. You were going to do something that no one has ever done before.
Mm-hmm.
This is the beginning of 2020. You're going to do something unprecedented. Obviously, we're seeing that now. Worth noting, as we all know in this room, that you're one of the first people to jump ship, the first major star, one of the first only people to jump ship from AEW to WWE. You talked earlier about how this is about, maybe this is a journey for you. Do you feel that pressure of knowing that if this goes well, obviously the aftermath, this could open the doors for other people to switch sides? Because in the last 3 years, it's only been kind of a one-way thing.
Yeah. Everyone talks about the forbidden door, and I mentioned that in that interview.
So the question that he asked was basically, now that you've had success coming back, do you feel like that opens the door for others to do the same thing, or vice versa? And he's about to talk about the forbidden door and that whole concept. What I think, based on what I've heard, if I have to guess what he's about to say, I think what he's about to say is, that wasn't something I was thinking about. He's mentioned this now 3 different times, that he did this for himself. He did this because it's what he needed to do. It was time for him to go. It wasn't about the money, it wasn't about the creative, wasn't about anything that happened or didn't happen at AEW. It was just time. And I think there's a lot of honesty and transparency in that statement. So to follow that up with a question like, do you think that you've opened up doors for others? I think that wasn't something that he was thinking about. It wasn't a driving force for what he's done. He can guess what's going to happen, but I don't think that it really changed much, other than, Cody Rhodes is one example of someone who has played in both sandboxes and has been successful. That's it. There's only one Cody Rhodes. It doesn't mean that it's not possible for somebody to come back like a Jericho. I don't think CM Punk will be coming back anytime soon, but there could be some that do return. But Jericho's probably the only other big name besides maybe a Moxley. But I think there's so much bad taste in Moxley's mouth about his time. I mean, and he's been outspoken about this several times. He was not healthy. The stuff that he went through, and almost dying from a staph infection that was misdiagnosed, I think is one thing too. But to be put through what he was put through from a creative perspective, to have zero control, zero say, and to just continue to go out and have no idea where the direction was, what he was supposed to be doing. I don't see a scenario where he thinks, yeah, I want to go back to that. I'll do that. So I don't think there's a lot of examples that people are thinking about where they could potentially go back from, went from WWE to AEW or traveled along the way and then landed in AEW, and then going from AEW to WWE. Now that's one scenario. The other scenario that I think they might be trying to allude to is, what about the talent like an MJF, who, he was somewhat famous or infamous, depending on your perspective, when he was with MLW and circling around the indies. But AEW has really made the most impact to his figure, and how many fans he has, what attention and draw he has. The name is there, and it's not something the WWE had a hand in creating. So the question is, what about those people, and who may be the first one to jump ship that made their name in AEW and maybe moving on to do something in WWE? That might be the bigger question than people who used to be in WWE, went to AEW and maybe come back. I don't think there's a lot of those examples, and really just a couple of names that we just touched on. So let's hear his answer here.
The Forbidden Door isn't just the dream match that you throw together. Forbidden Door is literally having the balls to make a hard decision, make those moves, and go back and forth. But the Forbidden Door, it's not locked. I know I've seen that in writing, that, how this goes will maybe impress upon others if they want to make the move, if they want to switch, one goes here, one goes there. That's the best thing ever. It's healthy, right? You guys are all here covering wrestling. Is everyone here a wrestling fan or sports entertainment? Right? Hey, like whatever you're covering this. Isn't it nice that you can go to all these different places, and isn't that nice? Doesn't that feel good? And it's not the world is not so small that you don't know. I know that person. We were talking about Okada, for example. If he was to walk out, I know that guy. I know that those individuals, and maybe there will be some back and forth, and maybe some folks will come by. But I'm just happy that the business is healthy, and that I was part of that. But now, as healthy as it is, Steve Austin will also tell you how healthy it was at one point, and I think that's the responsibility as well. But that doesn't hurt what we do. It brings more people to the table. That's what you want. That's old school promoter. Hey, you went to the show last week. You had a great time. He told 2 of his buddies. There's 3 people who came. It's still the same style of promotion in wrestling. Get as many people to come, and if they find someone they love, then they follow their journey. So that's the real responsibility. As far as last night was great, but it was a freebie. It really was. I'm very glad that I think the match was strong, but it was a freebie, and the responsibility really is on to what do we do next. Because this is crazy in terms of the legacy that's been laid out and what's happened. And now what? It needs to be just as big, and that's definitely a tall order. But I look forward to that. You want to play in the Super Bowl, you want to win the big games and win the big one. So yeah, it's good responsibility. It's good pressure. And thank you, by the way, Bleacher Report. Thank you guys. You guys were very good to me at AEW. Thank you. I'm sorry if we yelled at you. Very good. Thank you, guys.
Hi, Lisa from Sport Bible.
Hello.
A lot has changed since you left the WWE. A lot of new talent has come through.
Yeah, Baron Corbin was mad, sad, happy. Shit. He went through a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Anyone that you kept an eye on while you were away, and now that you're back looking to wrestle with?
Well, I kept an eye on everybody. Because you got to remember, we came up, there's guys that I came up with. Like Miz. I was so proud of him last night. Because I was on a bus with a group of people kind of poking fun at Miz. Oh, he can't. I hate when people say he can't work. Well, what is working? Because if working is getting this crowd going nuts and then giving them a surprise at the end, he definitely can. And at the highest level. I was so proud of him to see Kofi and all his kids. Honestly, to see Beth and to be able to share photos of our children. I tried to keep in touch with everybody. I did. I did. So it didn't feel like I had been away. It was really jarring when I walked into Gorilla because I never went through Gorilla to go out. I went to the little Cody Vader thing, so I never saw anyone. So then I went to Gorilla and it was just, oh my gosh, I already know all these people. And you're wearing that Brody shirt. It's a great example. Everybody in the business came together over, what happened with Brody. So this was a good time to see some people. But yeah, no, I kept in touch with everybody. The one that I was a little shocked, I was told that Randy is like a family man now and doesn't get in trouble, and I won't have it. Because the very first time I met Randy, the very first time I saw Randy, we were in Cape Town, South Africa at the TV hotel, or whatever, for that tour, really nice hotel. And I walked by the men's bathroom, and he had his hands around the urinal, and he goes, "Hey, Code, look at this." And he yanked the entire urinal out of the wall. The entire, like a superhuman strength, plaster ripping off the thing, flood just sweeping out into the lobby, and he giggled. And I thought, I don't know if I got what it takes to be a wrestler. I don't know. Had this big talent meeting the next day. Hey, there were security cameras, guys. We want to know who did it. He walked up in front of everybody, said, "Hey, I want to know who did it." And this is amazing. This guy is nuts. And then to see him, he's got this family, and he's a leader, because he was a great teacher. He really was. I told him last night, I got a brief interaction with him. I said, just thank you for teaching me, because he took the time to teach me. But that one shocks me. So I'm going to try and set some traps, some things to see if I can get him back. Because that was important. Like Randy freaking out was a big part of my life. Ice cream. He had to have ice cream. If you didn't have ice cream, he'd tell him, "I'm going to go in the kitchen and make my own ice cream." It was just, I need him there, and I don't think I'm going to get him there, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try and stir him up as much as possible. I think I'm going to start today and tell him such and such said this about you. I think I'm just going to see what I can do. But I was shocked that I'm very happy that he's the man he's become, and to be able to lead people, because he was so good to me. It was never in public, but on the side, he told me everything I needed to know to be successful as a wrestler, and he did it in front of me as well. He showed. So I was so happy to see him. I really can't wait to get back in the ring with him. I'd probably hold off on it for a hair, but I can't wait to do that.
Joey?
Cody, first of all, thanks for doing this.
Oh, thank you.
Joey Hayden, Dallas Morning News. I know we'll appreciate you taking the time.
How bad is my forehead, by the way?
It's all right.
Homie went to town with the Kawada kicks. Homie went to town. And then after, I didn't know what it was. And my wife was just like, "What happened to your face?" Not here. Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
But WrestleMania 32, as Stardust, you pull out a polka dot last
Oh, yeah.
WrestleMania 38, last night, you run through the litany of Rhodes family maneuvers.
Yeah.
In the same building 6 years later. What kind of extra significance to you over time to be back here in the same spot for this moment?
Well, one of the things you're from Dallas Morning News?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I lived briefly in Denton County in Von Erich country, and as a kid we lived in McKinney. I love Dallas. I don't want to give you a short answer, but I'll say I'm really looking forward to telling fans on Raw, hopefully, and it's the Raw after WrestleMania, so who knows what's going to happen. It's kind of like the mystery vortex of WWE, but I'm really looking forward to telling them my intentions. But I think if you're not a hardcore fan, I think if you're a wrestling fan, a sports entertainment fan, I think if you're a fan, you get it in terms of what I want to do. And I had said in the interview they got me for WWE.com, or the interview they got me right afterwards, I had kind of opened the bag in terms of, for so long I tried so hard to just veer away from Dusty. Just because he was Dusty, I don't want them chanting his name. He's already over, he was the best, and just a superb performer, and the industry's been so good to him after his passing in terms of nobody rewriting history on what he actually did. But I think for the first time, there's that great quote, a man often finds his destiny on the path he takes to avoid it. That's me. It really is, so it'll be unique to just kind of put that out there, because there's a story that I hopefully get to tell fans that I've never told fans about why I wanted to be a wrestler. Some people in this room might know it, why I want to be a wrestler, but I've never told the whole, wrestling fans, sports entertainment fans, the WWE universe. I never told them, and I get the chance to do that. But I feel like I may not need to, because I think if they see it, the jabs, the elbow, they'll get it. But it's special, and Texas is a Texas crowd, and Texas crowds are different. San Antonio is hot. Laredo is on fire. Hidalgo is on fire. Houston is a little bit more of you got to earn it. You got to earn it. Dallas is a lot of you got to earn it too. They've seen the Von Erichs. They've seen Undertaker, Steve Austin, Booker T. They've seen it, and I loved that. I felt like Barry Windham out there, because it was a matter of okay, it's going good. Going good. I think it's good. Oh, and this, as the sound goes up in those stadiums, but then to be able to slowly, felt like a pro. Yeah.
I wish that there were some statistics, though. I hear what he's saying about the different Texas crowds, and I can definitely attest to that. Being, I went there about a month ago now. I think 4 weeks ago, down to Arlington. I saw 3 different independent wrestling shows, and I agree that I'm from Chicago, so I'm very familiar with Chicago crowds. I had no idea going down there what it was going to be like. Were the crowds going to be into it? Were they going to be more reserved and quiet? What was it going to be like? And each show was a little bit different, but what I do agree, it's a different thing. It probably you've got to earn it type of mentality. But why I go back to the stats, it's WrestleMania. I mean, we saw a ton of people there who are not from Texas, and across 2 nights, I wonder if there's any sort of statistics that are out there. Where did people really come from? Were they mostly from Texas? Which probably, but what was the percentage of people who were there because it was WrestleMania and they traveled from outside of Texas to come in? Maybe that influenced the overall reaction. I doubt it, but it's just interesting, and I'm kind of a numbers guy, so I'd be curious to see if there's any kind of statistics out there that really talk about it. And I don't even know how you would track or collect that type of information unless you got it from like if they put in a billing address or something. But there's probably not enough source material to actually get into that kind of statistic. But I mention it just because it's WrestleMania, and it's not just a Texas crowd; it's a WWE crowd. So anyway, and feel free to put in the chat if you completely disagree with that. That's my take. But I could be very off on that. So feel free to disagree if you think that makes sense there.
2 more, 1 domestic, 1 international.
Damn.
International.
There's so many people from the UK here. That's amazing. Yeah, that's so great. Yeah.
So you touched on it a little bit, but how would you describe that return last night when you were still on your own way to come through the stage? Like, what was going through your mind when you got the reaction from the crowd when you were out there, and then when getting backstage after the match?
I feel like I try to be like sorry for saying like, I try to be a master of faces. I think about what will I do? Will I smile? Touch my tongue to my teeth? Will I smirk? Will I sneer? Will I drop my? I think a lot about cameras, and I want to do this, want to do that. I had nothing. I honestly, and I got in the ring, and I had nothing, because it was just real. I didn't need to indicate how I felt. It was just sincere. So I didn't know what the feeling would be, other than I had told so many of these guys kind of flanking me. It's so heavy. It's so heavy. And this happened so quick. It's been 40-something days. 40-something days ago, I was wrestling Sammy Guevara on a different show and having a great time and a very fun, great ladder match. And now, bam, whole world's kind of changed again, at least for me personally. So that was a good indication of how sincere everything was, because I just didn't have, I had to just really feel it and take it in. I've not watched it back, but I know there's a couple moments I'm thinking like, just stone-faced, like just because it was so good to feel it. But definitely nothing but positive. There wasn't anything I kicked myself over in there. There wasn't a feeling that it irked me. I wanted to jump into the crowd, but I know the rules are different and such. And then I thought, oh, I could still do it. Maybe I'll do it. And then it was just we were moving along. But I hope that we can do that at some point here soon, just because it's so good to see the fans and see them like that. It is supposed to make them have a good time. They're here for more than 2 days, really. It's got to be the best experience of their life. Every wrestling show should be that, or intend to be that. But yeah, the big indicator that I was in a whole nother place was none of my faces. I don't think one of them happened. I was just wow, like floored by it all. Everyone told me, oh, they're gonna love it. It's gonna be huge. You don't know that. And plus, I had come off a situation where I was split. The crowd was split on me, so I was prepared for that, which would have been great. I love the split. Love it. Welcome the split. But that wasn't a split, and I thought, thank you. And it was a feather in Seth's cap for making it that way for me. Nick, you see Nick? He stuck his hand way up.
Then we'll do 2 more.
Look how high
he was
he's
very enthusiastic, but I already picked Rick first.
Got it.
Ricky Chino, SB Nation. Nice to finally meet you in person.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Want to talk about your opponent last night. A lot of people said that he would have been the perfect opponent for you at WrestleMania. This is a guy you may mention in an interview before that you were his first dark match.
Yeah.
To watch Seth Rollins grow from there to where he is last night, what do you think about his evolution and also the work that he did in this build-up to this match by himself?
When he was cooking and smoking in San Jose, when he wrestled Randy, great match. Then he went out and cashed in. I was, as wrestlers, you're happy for each other, but also, it's the spot you wanted.
Yeah.
And some people get it sooner than later. And he was part of this crop of guys and girls that were Dusty's kids from NXT. Whew. I hated all of Dusty's kids. And I didn't, that was unfair. It was just jealousy. It was just a little bit of bitterness in the soul. And what better revenge on earth is there than success? And, he absolutely moved way ahead of me, way up the card. But to be able to share this, and you mentioned one of the hardest things to do in pro wrestling and sports entertainment is get to the show. That's to get to the show and keep people's imagination. That's how I define a pro wrestler, your ability to capture their imagination from show to show. That's what a pro wrestler is to me. And he did such a marvelous job to get there, and then to be able to take him by surprise within the confines of the show itself. I feel like it couldn't have been anybody else. I feel like Kalamazoo, Michigan. He walked out and introduced himself to the crowd, Intercontinental title, whatever it may be. Dayton, Ohio, I'll never forget. He had come off of Ring of Honor, and I wasn't being a dick or anything, but I asked him, I said, do you think they're going to announce you from Dayton? Because we do that for the dark matches, from Dayton, Ohio, Tyler Black. And he goes, probably not. They'll know me, though. And then they did. It wasn't overwhelming, but as I was dashing Cody Rhodes at the time, so it wasn't overwhelming for me either in terms of receptions, but they did. There was a contingent of the ROH fandom. So he always had that confidence, and he always had that business acumen, and we're both fathers now, and just to see the level he's grown. He was ready long before others. That's a skill in itself. Some of us are slow learners, me being the number one example, but it really couldn't have been anybody but him. Really couldn't be anybody but him. I really look forward to, I don't think that will be the only one. I don't, but who knows?
Okay, the very enthusiastic.
Sorry.
I'm ready.
Yeah. What had happened?
You told everyone to boo me at Starcast #1.
Well, that's how they love you. If they boo you, they love you. If they cheer for you, they love you. If they don't really do anything, then they don't care.
I
Well, thanks, man.
So my question is a little off the beaten path. You brought Eddie Kingston, Ricky Starks to AEW. You obviously have an eye for young talent. What's the future of the Nightmare Factory, and do you have an interest in following in the footsteps of your dad down with NXT, WWE developmental? Do you want to work on that side of the business with WWE?
Never say never. Just general, because in 6 years, if we're having this conversation again, I've completely gone back on what I said. I don't think I want a management job in wrestling ever again. I don't think I was mature enough for it. And I tried. And Eddie and Ricky, you mentioned them both. All I did was put them out there. Seth did the same thing for me last night. He put me out there. He put me out there. Tony Khan was the one who said, yes, because I had said, we don't have to hire everybody from the open challenge. And we basically did. At the time, the Nightmare Factory has never been connected with anywhere. So I want them all. A lot of them think it's a fast track to a wrestling company. And what I try to tell them, and I understand why, it's people have gotten called up. But I try to tell them it's a fast track to just learning how to make money in sports entertainment and pro wrestling. The first thing I do at the end is I say, hey, don't be afraid to ask. If you want to talk to Mike Lombardi at NEW, or if you want to go to Chaotic or All Pro Wrestling, tell them you trained here. That's the whole point. If you don't make it then to the end of the 12 weeks, then we don't have to worry about it. But all of them who make it, that's a hard thing for me. Is I love all these kids, and we're on like camp 5. It's just too many at this point. I remember my first student, and that being Brooke Havoc, and now like every camp there's somebody like that. But yeah, no, I wanted to feed the wrestling and sports entertainment space, and I want them to go and make the right decisions. And we have trainers there from one company, we have trainers there from another company. It's all harmony, synergy. We watch everything. I don't like to be in a bubble, right? I know how big WrestleMania was, and it would be very easy to be in this bubble because I could live in it forever in terms of the scope and grandeur of what Kevin Dunn directed last night in terms of just this beautiful presentation. But we know. It's happening all over. That's why it worked last night. I wasn't just in a cave for 6 years. So that's why it worked. So the factory will continue to operate and run. If I never walk into the Performance Center, I'd be happy because it's a little too hard for me. That's where his office was. His boots are there. His stores are there. And also, when I graduated OVW, my dad told me, never go back. You're done. You're done. Never go back. Because you can learn wrestling moves all day long at a wrestling school. No knocking on that. You can learn flips, dives. You can learn all of these moves that are needed today. The high-tech stuff, as Arn Anderson likes to call it, the high-tech stuff. But the only way you really get the flow and the connection is working in front of crowds, and that you don't have that ability. You can get your students to be a crowd, but it's not really the same. So yeah, I'm game. As the press release stated and such, this was a very large agreement, and I'm fully all in and committed to it. So where I go, they'll send me where I go, but I will try and steer clear of any management roles, anything like that ever. I'm a wrestler, right? Or superstar. And that's probably what's best for me. Because people blame me for everything. No. No, I'm happy though.
Okay, guys, we're going to wrap, but before we do, talk about the A&E.
I blew it. I didn't talk about the A&E thing, huh?
Okay.
Where's Gina? I'm so sorry. This is my publicist. Everybody say hi, Gina. Hi, Gina. This is great. This is very exciting. This was one of the big pieces to the puzzle in terms of coming back. A&E is doing a documentary on my dad. And I was not worried by any means that they wouldn't get it right, but I know for sure they will get it right because I'm the executive producer on it, and it's covering a lot. I wonder if you guys will see his brother's interview and Janie Ingles' interview. You probably know who Janie is. Some of these historic figures that surrounded my father. I think everyone knows. I have a list of names of all the people who've wronged Dusty over the years, and it's like Arya Stark of people, people who said this and said this. But in this case, I'm just really happy. Let's present the real story. Let's present what he did with Crockett, what he did with WWF, what he would ultimately do with NXT. Let's present the real story, because he was a very authentic person in somewhat of a not authentic world, and it was positive for him and it was negative, but I'm glad to share the legacy with the world, and all 4 of the kids are in it, and that's very rare that we ever get together to do anything. So yeah, very much looking forward to that. I hope it's the best of the doc series. I mean that in a fun, competitive way. I'm sure they'll all be wonderful, but I'm happy to revisit Dusty again. And that was happening before I had decided to come back. So now there's a whole nother layer. I think the ending changed to it all. There's a whole nother layer to it that's really special. So very much looking forward to that. Very much. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
We'll see you at WrestleMania.
Thank you, guys. Yeah.
That is very cool. I'm happy that he is the executive producer for that documentary. I think that's really, really special. I look forward to definitely seeing that. And again, it just kind of really solidifies to me, family is extremely important to the Rhodes family, but it's also very important to Vince and to Cody specifically. So that was a great interview. I know it was long. We've been here talking together for about an hour and a half. Thank you all for your comments and insight in the chat. I am going to go ahead and end this one a little bit early. There was a second interview that Cody did with Ariel Helwani. We might do that in another stream. But for right now, I think we've heard a lot from Cody. We've talked a lot about where he's at, where his mind is at. I think all eyes are definitely on the Raw after WrestleMania here tonight to see what happens. Where do we go next with Cody Rhodes? Where do we go next with Roman Reigns and the undisputed Universal Champion? And that story, we've got a lot, and of course WWE is building up to their next pay-per-view, WrestleMania Backlash. So they've got to put those matches together, piecemeal the story, where are the things that they want to carry forward from WrestleMania, where are things that are kind of unfinished business that they want to address on Backlash. But then here we've got, of course, one of the biggest stories in all of professional wrestling with Cody Rhodes, and what's next for him. Like he mentioned it during the interview, the WrestleMania night 1, his match with Seth was a freebie. The fans appreciated it for what it was. It was a very emotional love story to professional wrestling, to the sports entertainment world. But you only get one of those, so it's on him. It's on the WWE. It's on his opponents to continue to tell the story and continue to provide entertainment and value in a different way. They've got to hold the attention of the WWE universe and the professional wrestling fan base, which sometimes can be really challenging when you're WWE. So with that said, thank you so much for your continued support. I did have this up on the previous screen. I will show it very quickly here. Down in the bottom left-hand corner, we will be doing some subscriber-only giveaways very, very soon. I will provide more information once I have more to share. But for right now, I want you all to be aware of that. You must be a subscriber to us on our Twitch channel in order to be eligible for the giveaways. We will also be doing some future raffles on our Twitch stream, both for subscribers and non-subscribers, as well as followers and non-followers. So we will provide more information through our website, ultimatesportstalk.com. We will also provide more information on our Twitter account, at Alt Sports Talk. And you can definitely hit me up on any of those social media networks, or leave a comment. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment in the video below, so that you can get more information. I will respond to everything that comes to me. So if you have questions or you want to know more details, as long as I know those details and I have something to share, I will definitely do that. So with that said, this is Greg Mitchell with Ultimate Sports Talk. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And until next time, have a great day, everybody.